Okay, so this section has usually been interpreted as the woman, quote, looking for love in all the wrong places, but all she needed was Jesus. Is it really that? No. Now, in a culture where dating is non-existent and marriages were arranged by parents, does not leave much room for romantic aspirations. Also, being married 5 times is quite a bit for that culture. Probably not really ever heard of. So this interpretation of the story does not seem to fit. So what is going on here? Well, there's a clue found in Matthew 22 that points to a cultural practice of the day. Some Sadducees came to Jesus with this logistical problem around the theology of the resurrection. And they asked him this question saying, "Teacher, Moses said if a man dies childless, his brother shall marry the widow and raise up children for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers among us." I did 8, but there's 7. There we go. The first married and died childless, leaving the widow to his brother. Man number 2. Second did the same. He died, no kids. Third, down to 4, 5, 6, 7. Last of all, then the woman died. Happy story. In the resurrection then, whose wife of the 7 will she be? For all of them had married her. Okay, that's like a super awkward scenario, really weird. This practice where if a man dies and does not have a son through the wife, then the brother becomes the responsible husband to the dead brother's wife, is called Levirate marriage. It's kind of a social security program in an agrarian farming culture because they're farming for their living. And widows and orphans were the most vulnerable in this society, which was heavily patriarchal, because they couldn't work the land and feed themselves, nor could they obtain work to earn money for trade to get food. So if a woman's husband died and she has no son, then the brother of the dead husband has the responsibility to give the woman a child, but in the name of his deceased brother. Now, this is really super weird practice, but again, this is a different culture like thousands of years ago across the continent. And that doesn't make it not weird, but it is the culture this story occupies, so we got to look at it that way. So a woman being married or remarried 5 times in this culture would be absolutely unheard of unless she was stuck in a fruitless Levirate marriage scenario. So my question is, what if she is not searching for love, but justice? Now that's a different thing altogether. Let's think about this. She gets married, and then her husband dies before giving her a son. Now she's a widow in danger of lifelong poverty. So Social Security program kicks in. Her brother-in-law becomes her responsible husband. But there's still no son to ease the threat of poverty. 4 brothers later, still has no son. Today we might say that she has fertility issues, but in her day, it was a curse from God to remain childless. That was a part of their narrative. That's lots of fun, isn't it? So she is exiled from the town, the Samaritan town, not because she has had so many husbands, but because she still doesn't have a son after she followed all of the rules. She's done everything that God has commanded. It's like written out in the Old Testament laws. And still, God has not acted to ease her situation. So it must be obvious that God has a problem with her. So she goes outside of the family and outside of God's law that isn't working for her. And she thinks, I want to have to take my situation into my own hands and find my own redemption because God isn't listening to me. So then Jesus says, the man that you are with is not your husband. Now, but from that standpoint, you have to admit she is courageous, because this apparent defiance is a form of faith in itself. And it's actually seen in a character from Genesis named Tamar. It's a really weird and disturbing story of the times. But she also had a husband die before having a child and did some unorthodox methods to gain a child that was refused from her Levirate husband. And she is actually honored as a woman of faith and listed in Jesus' own genealogy. So we often think that faith is all about proper rule keeping that maintains the social status quo. but it's more seen in the acts of courage in desperate situations like this woman finds herself, the determination to fight, to make life better, and that non-conforming spirit of authenticity that just remains true to your own inner soul. Jesus notices this outstanding woman's faith and offers her a gift, opportunity. Yes, she became the very first evangelist to a whole town. And we're going to look at her amazing work in the next section.